On October 8, 1871, two fires began burning in the Midwest. One would become one of the most famous disasters in American history. The other would become the deadliest wildfire in U.S. history. If you're interested in documented Great Lakes history that most people don't learn about, subscribe before we begin, because the fire that killed the most people that night didn't happen in Chicago. It happened in Peshtigo, Wisconsin. In the fall of 1871, the upper Midwest was dry, very dry. The summer had been marked by drought conditions across Wisconsin and Michigan. Logging operations were expanding rapidly. Forests were being cleared. Debris was left behind. Branches, sawdust, stumps, slash piles. In logging regions, small controlled burns were common to clear land. Railroads threw sparks. Chimneys were unguarded. Fire was routine until wind arrived. On October 8th, a powerful cold front moved through the region. Winds intensified suddenly. Small fires that had been smoldering across northeastern Wisconsin combined and exploded into what survivors later described as a firestorm. The town of Peshtigo sat along the Peshtigo River, surrounded by logging camps and timber. By nightfall, flames were advancing rapidly. Witnesses reported walls of fire moving faster than a person could run. Trees igniting instantly, air so hot it scorched lungs. This was not an ordinary wildfire. Under the right conditions, extreme fires create their own weather systems. As hot air rises rapidly, cooler air rushes inward at ground level, feeding oxygen into the blaze. The result is a self-sustaining firestorm. Temperatures during the Peshtigo Fire are estimated to have reached over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit in some areas. Entire neighborhoods were consumed in minutes. Some residents ran toward the Peshtigo River, believing water would save them. Many stood submerged for hours, breathing through wet cloth, while embers rained down. Some survived that way. Many did not. The official death toll is listed at around 1,200 people, but historians believe the number was likely between 1,500 and 2,500. Exact figures are impossible to confirm. Record keeping in frontier logging towns was limited. Entire families were erased. Bodies were burned beyond recognition. At the same time, approximately 250 miles to the south, Chicago was burning. The Great Chicago Fire destroyed thousands of buildings and left over 100,000 people homeless. Chicago was a major city. It had national attention. Telegraph lines carried news quickly. Newspapers across the country reported on the destruction. Peshtigo did not have the same reach. It was smaller, rural, primarily a logging town, and many of the reporters who might have covered it were themselves displaced by the Chicago Fire. As a result, national focus centered on Chicago. But in terms of loss of life, Peshtigo was far deadlier. The fire did not stop at the town itself. It spread across an estimated 1.2 million acres. Multiple communities were destroyed. Parts of Michigan's Upper Peninsula were also affected by fires that same night. The Midwest in 1871 was a landscape primed for combustion, deforestation, drought, high winds, and no modern firefighting infrastructure. There were no coordinated emergency services, no aerial surveillance, no early warning systems. Survival depended on proximity to water or pure luck. Some survivors described tornado-like fire behavior, whirlwinds of flame lifting debris into the air, fire-jumping rivers, animals running in confusion. What makes the Peshtigo Fire especially devastating is how quickly it overwhelmed people. There was little time to evacuate. No structured communication system. Many believe smaller fires were under control until they weren't. In Chicago, rebuilding began almost immediately. The city's importance ensured investment. Peshtigo rebuilt too, but it never regained national prominence. Today, the Peshtigo Fire remains the deadliest wildfire in American history, yet it is rarely taught with the same emphasis as the Chicago Fire. Why? Part of the answer lies in visibility. Chicago was a growing metropolis. Its destruction affected commerce, architecture, and national economics. Peshtigo was a logging town. Its loss was human, not financial in the same way. Urban disaster captures attention differently than rural tragedy. There is also the matter of narrative. The Chicago fire became attached to legend myths. O'Leary's cow, dramatic city rebuilding, architectural rebirth. Peshtigo's story is harder to package. It is raw. It is overwhelming. It is a reminder of how vulnerable communities were in the 19th century and how environmental conditions, combined with industrial expansion, can produce catastrophe. The fire cemetery in Peshtigo still exists today. Mass graves, markers listing unknown victims. A museum preserves survivor accounts. But nationally, the memory is quieter. The night of October 8th, 1871, reshaped both places. One became symbolic, the other became historic. When people referred to the Great Fire of 1871, they usually mean Chicago, but the deadliest fire in U.S. history happened the same night in Wisconsin. Two disasters. One remembered, one often overlooked. If you want more documented Great Lakes history where major events intersect with forgotten ones, subscribe. Some tragedies dominate headlines, others burn just as fiercely, but fade faster from memory.